to our third and final episode of our series that we're doing. Today's topic is Life of an Entrepreneur. We'll be discussing what it really takes, to thrive as an entrepreneur from a personal development to leadership growth perspective and whatever else that'll come in this conversation. We have nothing planned here, folks. We're watching and listening. Jennifer and Caroline and I are just going to tell you or just share with you how we went through what we went through. By the way, by the way of recap, the first episode we did in the series was corporate executive to entrepreneurship, our three journeys, what led us to where we are today. The second episode was about conscious business, where we provided you our perspectives on what we thought conscious business meant, how to be congruent with what you are creating with yourself, inner self, etc., and finding some purpose in what you're creating. So with that, Jennifer, you want to get us started about what it means when we say life of an entrepreneur, whether it's your life day to day or just the things we all go through as human beings in terms of challenges and
such. Well, for me, one of the biggest challenges initially was the change in pace and structure to my day. When you're in a corporate space or any other type of job, right, you're going to have a lot of things that kind of dictate your schedule, whether it's meetings that you have to be a part of or ones that you've scheduled yourself because you need to have them. You're running from thing to thing, deadline to deadline, meeting with people, calming situations down, escalations, meeting with clients, all the things. So when you step away from that, you have to create your own structure. And I think for me, that was one of the biggest ahas initially. And that I really had to focus on, okay, like what are my priorities? What am I going to focus on? And that mindset shift really helped me just get started with it. Like I shared in one of our previous episodes, you don't have to have all the answers initially. You're not going to. Entrepreneurship, like any career choice, it's an evolution, a journey. You learn as you go through different experiences. So for me, initially, it was a lot of infrastructure focus, building the website, defining my service offerings. It was educating myself on the different softwares that were available because there's a lot out there. And it was about determining what do I really need now, like Zoom or Canva, and what can wait till later. What do I really need to get my business up and running? So a lot of my initial priorities and focus was around those things, as well as talking to leaders. Obviously, I came from corporate. I had a lot of insight and experience about what leaders were challenged with, which is really what my offering is all about. How do I coach and help leaders? But I also wanted to get additional insight. So I spent a lot of time also speaking with leaders and getting their feedback on what their challenges were and where I could support. So a lot of structure and focus on those priorities, that really is what set me off initially. But I do think going back to the structure in the day-to-day, you really have to be very intentional as an entrepreneur because you don't have someone necessarily dictating your time like you might, elsewhere. So again, it was a lot of setting priorities. What do I want to focus on this week? Who am I connecting with? Who am I going to be coaching? Which clients will I be working with? What content am I trying to prepare? So it was really a lot about setting priorities and specific days when I would do work. And it's been a lot of trial and error. I think for me, it's definitely been creating certain days to do certain work has been helpful for me. But the structure and the time and where I spend my time, that can be a real challenge. It was for me initially because I like structure. And so I needed to create that in my day-to-day. Otherwise, how else would I start achieving the goals that I had set forth to become an entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm. How is that different for when you were in the job? Of course, you were there a certain set time and then you left when you left. Particularly for people who are upwardly mobile and working very hard, high performers. I'm sure you were. It's sort of it's inside of you to just grind. So on the one hand, we have our freedom. And on the other hand, it's like, as you said, the discipline. What role? I mean, how do you self-discipline? Because that's another challenge of mine, but we can talk about that. But like, because now you don't have to take the train or drive your car to work. You have more time in that respect. But then, oh my God, now how am I going to stay focused on this business and prioritization?
Sure. Well, part of it when you're starting off as an entrepreneur, you're starting something. You want to grow a business. And just like I mentioned, all the different steps I was taking to build the infrastructure and so forth, part of this is really, how do you put yourself out there? Mm-hmm. And so there are certain things, the way I looked at it was there are certain things I have to accomplish to be able to do that thing, to be able to say to the world, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I can offer. And for me, it was, I had to be very methodical about it. And that was what was driving me. I also knew I had a very specific amount of time every day that I could focus on my work. One of the reasons I left corporate to do this, not only was this passion to help leaders in a different way and in a broader scope, I also wanted more flexibility for my personal life, for my family. And so I knew that, okay, I have to leave at this time to go pick up my son from school. And this is how long that's going to take, or this is the activities we have going on. So for me, I knew I had a very specific amount of time that I can get these priorities done. And that helped me be very disciplined. Okay. And sometimes I will even set timers to keep myself on track, because listen, it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or if you're in corporate life. The reality is you will become distracted. Yes. You will have other things interrupt your day. And when you work from home, it's very tempting to go, oh, let me do the laundry, or let me, put my grocery list together. And that's true of any job where you're working from home. The reality is, or wherever you work, the reality is you're going to have distractions. So that helped me stay focused. And that really is a big part of it. Even today, I know I have X amount of time and I have these priorities. And so I have to structure my time. And some days are better than others. Some days, I don't get all those to-dos done, but at least I know where I can pick back up. If I do get off course for whatever reason, I know, okay, this is where I've got to go next. And that focus is what helps me be disciplined. Again, it's a trial and error type of situation.
Caroline?
So how about you, Caroline? Like what does
just like? Listening to the setting the schedule and protecting that time and protecting the structure of your day, setting it up has been easier for me than actually maintaining it. And my struggle has been setting boundaries around that time and really protecting it and keeping it dedicated to what I'm trying to do within my business. Like you, one of the things that I really like about the flexibility of entrepreneurship is having more time for my family and being able to control that and being there when they need me. But it's also not answering the phone call because someone has left their lunch at home or stopping everything. It's protecting it and putting walls around it. To really stay focused on it. And that has definitely been one of my struggles throughout my entrepreneurship, and letting other people know just because I'm working at home does not mean that I'm free to go run errands or go do this or go do that. It has to work within that set time frame. And it's real easy to get pulled into 10 different directions and feeling bad because you can't go do something for someone or pick someone up at the drop of a hat. It's I am still working. This is still, there's still that job aspect of it. I have a responsibility to my boss, myself, to get my work done in that time that I've set up for it. And then the other thing that you mentioned, Jennifer, that I think is really important is, I think you said something about, as your business evolves. And my business looks nothing like what it started out as 15 years ago. It has changed. it's not changed for the sake of change or because I've tried to be everything to everybody, which, there have been times that I've done that, which that's another set of boundaries to set of this is what I do, not all these other things. But it just based on what the market has expected, what clients have expected, what I feel like is becoming more important as times change, that is how it's evolved. And really constantly monitoring and adjusting what it is you're offering, what it is you're doing, and then what it is you're learning. We've all done DCA, and we've each taken very different things from it and used what works for us. We've all worked with coaches or mentors. And again, that has changed throughout. The kind of coach I needed when I first started is not the coach I need now. And having that flexibility and realizing that you've got to move and grow with your business.
Yeah. And if I may just add something to that, I think something that you're really sharing there, Caroline, that's so important is this doesn't have to look any particular way.
Yeah.
Right. I think sometimes, there's this fear that, am I not doing it the right way? Or am I supposed to do it a certain way? The one thing, even for myself, this year, even I've had to really get okay with is that in life, you're going to go through seasons, and even in entrepreneurship, it's the same way. There are going to be seasons where you do have to be more available to your family, and so you have to be okay. And it's hard when you are doing this yourself, right? Because you feel like, okay, I've got all these goals, I've got these things I have to do, but no one's telling you have to do that. And I think that's what you're sharing really just resonates with me, Caroline, because yes, sometimes it is really hard to stay focused because you do have other commitments. And that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. You're getting some flexibility to make those types of choices, right? Yeah. And that's okay. That's a good thing. But it is a mindset, right? And being okay with yourself and not beating yourself up because I didn't get this, and this done, because the reality is we have to pivot and flex. And the beauty of entrepreneurship is you do have that choice that you can make. But it doesn't have to look a certain way.
That,
yeah.
No, go ahead, Raju.
I had a question around that, but it's like, a lot of my clients struggle with money and finances, and how has that played a part in either of your journeys so far? I know that Caroline, yours has been a little longer, and Jennifer, yours is more recent, but it's like, there is that part that's somehow we have this money mindset. This is a separate box in our heads, and business is all about money, business is about success, and business is about having revenues. Of course, all of those things are true. And again, I'll come to my piece, but it's like that's been, it comes and goes. I've been in it for 20 years, and it's like where I started, where I am, as you said, Caroline, it's like total chalk and cheese. But I'm glad I started, and I think it's starting, right? That's the main thing.
It's starting, yeah. The financial aspect is that's always just everything from pricing my services to figuring out what I'm putting back into the business, that sort of thing. It's a constant sort of give and take based on again, like Jennifer said, the seasons in life. Right now we've got a child in college and a child who's getting ready to start applying to law school. So money going back into the business is a little bit less than it's been in the past. But I think your own value. But for me, for example, it's always been a hard thing to put a number on it when I'm working with clients. And then I've also had clients say, oh, well, that's really, we didn't really expect to pay for that. And my response, not to them, but just to reassure myself, is they're not valuing it the way they should. And then that's not going to be a job I do, because it isn't, if they don't have enough interest or enough value for what I do, for the services I'm providing, then it's not a good fit.
That's right. Yeah. I always think of that plumber example. You ask a plumber to come in because you got a crisis. It's in the middle of Christmas, and there's
Mhm.
that story with the Chicago plumber that, so they have the big family Christmas parties going on, and this guy, and we have a problem because there's so many people in the house and they need the bathroom fixed, and which plumber is going to show up, right, to have this fixed. So they finally get a guy, and they don't talk about the price, and so he walks around and finally finds something in the bathroom, and he just turns a screw somewhere, and everything starts to work, and then Merry Christmas, and everybody goes along their way, and then he sends him a bill for $10,000. And then, the guy's really upset. Like, what do you mean? You were here for like 5 minutes and turn a screw. So then he said, could you send me an itemized bill? To the point you're making, Caroline, about the time. So he sends him a bill. It's like, $1 for the time spent, for turning the screw, and $9,999 for which screw to turn. And
yeah, I love that story. You've told us that before, and
okay.
I'm glad you reminded me of it because I'd forgotten it. And that is some of the frustration, is that they think that they're paying for that one turn of the screw.
Yeah.
Like, no, I've got 20 plus years of experience that I'm bringing to the table here, and you're paying for. That's what you're paying for. That's where the value is.
Absolutely.
And if they don't see value in that, and I'm gesturing, and this isn't a podcast, and no one's gonna be able to see my gestures. But if they don't value all that comes before,
yes,
then they're not going to value the turning of the screw like they should, and they're not taking anything you're teaching them in the other direction.
Yep.
So it's a real eye opener to me when people respond that way and don't understand the value of the service is not just that 1 minute.
Yeah, it's the outcome driven, right? You want the results. I'm here to give you the result.
Yes.
You already told me it's priceless, but then you're nickel and dime me on your price.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think, definitely the pricing piece is challenging. And this is where having connections like our group and as well as connecting with other entrepreneurs, it's very helpful because the one aspect of this journey that I have found to be so refreshing and just encouraging is that people are willing to share with you what they're doing and what their experience has been, and how much, I was speaking with somebody the other day because, talking about revenue streams, right? And what does that look like as an entrepreneur? Again, I think it's much like your schedule. It's a little give and take, and it's a little trial and error. And, it changes over time. And you try to figure out what's working and what's not, and what do people really want. I think as an entrepreneur, when you're serving a particular audience or a client base, a lot of what you're doing is getting feedback about what do they need, like what really matters to them. Because to your point, Caroline, we're all coming with a lot of experience and a lot of expertise in the areas that we're, our offerings are around. And you have to get at what people really need. But one of the things I've been thinking about is, I'm thinking about maybe putting together some guides, for leaders, and based on some feedback that I have received and just things that I've been kind of mulling around in my own mind about, okay, what could be another opportunity to get information out there consistently.
Sure.
And I was speaking to another entrepreneur, and I was just asking some general questions around like their pricing and just to get a feel. And they sent me their pricing guide. And I just really appreciated that, because in corporate, sometimes people are very guarded and don't always want to share what,
no.
Well, it's how the relationships you have. I think sometimes people are very forthcoming, but other times people are more guarded because it's, they're trying to protect their own, what they're doing instead of trying to maybe share and help someone else. And so I do think that having those relationships and connections really makes a big difference as we're determining what pricing is appropriate. And you see the gamut with what we do. In the coaching world and in speaking world, you can get all over, but it is really important, to your point, Caroline, is to the value.
Having a group like this, going back to find a community of people that you can really go to for mentoring. I've come to y'all with exact numbers, and you've said, yeah, no, this way, that way. And it's been very specific. Whereas when I've gone out, to your point, Jennifer, it's been very guarded. Like, well, you just need to charge what you think you're worth. And whatever you think you're worth, you probably need to charge more than that because you're probably worth more than that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's be realistic. I'm like, okay, I need a number for that.
Yes.
And
You need a
it's
starting
nice
point.
to have y'all to say, okay, that's a good number, or no, not that. Go up or go down. That's invaluable
Yes.
assistance.
Completely agree. And you both have helped me in the same way. And
Yeah.
it's, it's really about trying to figure out what it is you want to offer, what people need, but then having a group of people to bounce things off of. And it definitely helps to determine those financial pieces, because they do, they're like you said, Caroline, they're always there because this is our business, right? And so how about you, Raju? I mean, when you think about your day to day, what have you found has been the most effective for you as an entrepreneur? And, what has been maybe the piece that has been maybe a recurring theme of your own development and journey in this?
Wow, that's a big question. I didn't expect that one. Like 20 years of entrepreneurship, 5 businesses come and gone for various reasons. The first one was a bomb. And it's the longest existing business I've had. But that's where I was in my own world, as I said the last time, ego, like the size of Wall of China, whatever, Great Wall of China. But I've had to learn that you start a business small. You do not go with fire. You have to kindle the fire first, right? So over time, I've learned that that anytime you want to start, you better start small. No, don't lose your vision of being big. Just start the fire small and begin with what is out there that somebody's willing to pay for, the problem you solve, or the outcome you're going to provide them, or a service or a product you're going to sell. So if you just want to, if you're hung up on your idea of what you think that the world needs, and I have had that problem for 10, 12 years, and only now for the past 5 or 6 years in the 2 businesses that have been very joyful for me, that has actually worked because I'm helping people with outcomes that they want, rather than me saying, this is what you should be healthy, you should look at yourself, inner work, let's do breath work. All that is integral. It is not the thing. But you have to begin somewhere. So the other thing I've learned is that we all do, this is not people everywhere. Everybody pays for what they want. People do not pay for what they need because they don't recognize the need. So unless you self-identify that you have something that you must address, then you will pay for it. And so that's what I've learned, that try not to come up with a business that you think is valuable in the world. Yes, there are the Elon Musks of the world and others who think they can just have a transportation to the Mars or to Mars. Well, good. But because there's no dearth of ideas, and you can just say, okay, if I'm willing to put in a few $1 billion behind it and test it, great. That's not the norm for those in our world. When you're making a decision to start something, you just start small. So I'm still learning. Learning never stops. So I'd say that for me, entrepreneurship, inner work, self-development, and leadership all go hand in hand. You can't do one without the other. So the more you invest in yourself, I think the better you are at navigating the challenges of entrepreneurial life. Because, boy, there are more downs than up. And then somebody said the other day to me, so why should I quit? I said, I'm not asking you to quit. I think there is great value in being a corporate employee, particularly if you're dedicated to what you do. But it comes down to the same thing. It doesn't matter. You just get your paycheck and then you're an employee, you show up. But if you're giving it your all, your employer will recognize your value, and they're going to pay you, promote you, etc. If that's what you want to do, I think that's awesome. But it's the same characteristics of investing in yourself to go deeper, to do uncomfortable things that you would never otherwise do. The paycheck keeps you comfortable. What's the quote that my former CEO at Morgan Stanley said once? And that's what drove me out of the firm. we pay you just enough so you don't quit. You get better, we promote you, and we pay you just enough so you don't quit. And that was meant in a very nice way for everybody as motivation. But it's that stayed with me. And I go, that is not who I want to be. You just pay me enough so I stay in my comfort zone. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway,
It's a low bar.
so yeah, I just felt okay. So when you are navigating all these uncharted waters, it's not easy, as you all said earlier. That find your community, find your group to bounce things off, because it is a lonely journey. I think, as you all had said in the previous episode or two as well, that it's not easy. And I mean, you guys have families. You have still have kids at home, or I live alone, so that's another complexity, because I don't need discipline in that way because I'm alone, and no one can tell me what to do, or the other way around. Like, I don't have anybody to tell, go do my laundry or just drop this off, or I have no time to do grocery shopping, but then I got to eat, then I go figure, oh, there's nothing in the fridge. So there is that, and so you need to be disciplined, in all, find those little times where you're maybe getting at the end of your creative zone, and then, okay, maybe this next hour is for grocery and some mundane things that need to get done. So it's been a major challenge for me, particularly the last 3 years since I've been solo living here.
Well, Raju, I have a question for you, because we all talk about learning and growing and doing personal and professional development for ourselves, but I would say you always have a book or an article or a podcast or something to suggest, because I think your capacity for learning is tremendous and your desire to learn is tremendous. What would be your top, I don't know, 3 books or podcasts or resources that you would recommend to someone starting out?
Holy. See,
Am I just totally putting you on the spot? I'm sorry.
certainly. I mean, so many come to mind, and then I go,
just a few that you think would be helpful, because I'd love to add to my
oh yeah.
library.
So this is again more, we remember things that are more recent as you get older. So one of the most prolific books, but particularly those listening and watching are in the 40s, 50s. There is that, and we call it midlife, and I don't like the word midlife. And this author, Richard Rohr, Rohr, describes what it means to enter the second half of life. So the book is called Falling Upward. It's by far one of the top books I've ever read in my life. So Falling Upward, it's a catchy title. How to navigate something with the subtext, your second half of your life. And by second half does not mean that now you're 45 or 40 or 50, you're going to the second half. He says some people are very wise beyond the years. So you could be 28 years old and you're already in the second half of your life because you've achieved so much, or you understood life so well. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great one. I think from a book standpoint, the money aspect, a lot of it's funny who I attract are a lot of Indians from India. And it's just not so funny in the sense that because I'm from India and they perhaps get inspired that this guy left to go to the US with $8 in his pocket and didn't know what he was going to do. So now 45 years later, there is something that they feel, I don't know, a connection with. So a lot of them have issues with money, as did I when I was growing up, because this thing about that country, India, the US is full of opportunity, and that's the land of opportunity with the money, and everywhere there isn't. And that's just so not true, right? Now, there are countries that have been oppressed and therefore have gone through hell, and they just don't have opportunities for people. But India is no longer in that category. So people stay back, and then they want to make an entrepreneur of themselves out there. And there's a great opportunity there. So I'd say there are books on money, and I did a little short video on that. There were 3 books on money that I talked about. And no, it is not Think and Grow Rich, as I said the first line. It's actually As a Man Thinketh, which is a very little book, 24-page book that I carry around every day if I have time to just, need a moment of inspiration. As a Man Thinketh, the rest of it is in the book itself. As a man thinketh from the heart, so he is. And it's written by James Allen, who is a British author. He wrote this book in 1912 or something like that. And it is a book on thought. It's just amazing. So how our thoughts drive everything we do and how we feel. Were you prepared for that answer? My God.
I love it. It's good.
I do too.
And podcasts, of course, I love Amy Porterfield's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
It's so organized that I've not seen anyone organize their podcast that way, by number, by topic, and she talks about every aspect of all the entrepreneurship that we've been talking about. I mean, that's how we met, right? So
Yeah.
Was that enough? I mean, there's so many.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love that, and I've written them all down. I'm definitely going to get the Richard Rohr to start reading. So thank you.
And he has many books, and this is by far. The other one is Everything. No, I just start with that one. There are many books with him. He's a Franciscan pastor, and it's a whole story about him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you have a great point, Caroline, because, even as whether, again, you're in corporate life or an entrepreneur, development is such a big part of your journey. And that's what helps you, as you said, Raju, navigate all the change, regardless of the environment you're in. It's definitely a real part of life. And it is a journey. And it is, again, it's not cookie cutter, and it's not always the same for every person. And that's okay. I think something that I realized several years ago, that I read somewhere, and it just gave me a lot of comfort, is that my life is not supposed to look like everybody else's, and neither is yours. And again, it comes back to what are those desires and themes that keep coming up in your life? Again, to your point, Raju, sometimes it is being an employee for a company, and that is perfectly fine. That's how we all started. That's where we gained our experience and our expertise and learned. But through that, there were other passions that were created and other missions, and that's what prompted us to take that step to move into entrepreneurship. But I hope that encourages people, because it doesn't have to look a certain way. And it's going to look different for every person. But what each of us and what each person brings something very unique. It can be the same topic, but only that individual has that experience to share and offer to the world. So
that's a great point, Jen. I mean, I was going to say, well, that's such great insight, because whoever's listening to this, you're doing it anyway within your corporate world. You're probably entrepreneurial in your heart, because you do more than, perhaps not as a way of competition, but you're just trying to bring your unique perspective to the job that you have, and that's beautiful. I mean, I think we all must have done that in our lives, because I thought I did. And it's just fantastic. It's, someone had once asked me, so what do you offer? Because somebody says, well, I'd just like to have a pizza that doesn't exist today, because I like it this way or that way. Because, well, how many more pizza parlors do we need in this town, New York City? Well, they don't have mine. And so that was, again, to your point, it's like, wow, you have your perspective, you have your way of doing the pizza. And if that's inside of you, somebody put that in there too, right? Some kind of force. Well, then give it expression. It may not be what you think it is going to be, and then people may not pay for it, but don't die with your gifts. Just do it. What are you going to do it if you're not going to do it now?
Yeah, the world needs what you have to give.
So true. Any closing thoughts, Caroline?
Well, just everything that you've just said, the fact that it's so individual, and the creativity and the ability to build something that is uniquely you, with your own perspective, your own insights, and create a business that is putting something powerful and creative and energetic out into the world. It's exciting. It's a gift if you're able to do it, and a little scary. So there's certainly a lot of courage and resilience involved. But if there's an idea percolating, try it.
Mm-hmm.
Be brave, step out. And even if you're starting it out as a side hustle because you've got to keep that corporate job, to pay the bills, don't let that contain you. After hours, weekends, there's plenty of opportunity to start launching that idea without having to necessarily immediately give up the security of a regular paycheck.
Oh. Wow. Absolutely. That's a great closing. Wow. That's awesome.
Just do it.
Do it.
Find some time and do it.
Awesome. Well, I'd say this was a very meaty episode. Thank you all for joining us for this 3-part series. Really hope that you've gained valuable insights on leadership, on starting, entrepreneurship, personal growth, any number of things, because that's the fun of this. Scary as it is, but it's scary in your job too. So anyway, just do it. Take care. Thank you again, Caroline and Jen, for being part of my journey.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate you both.
Bye-bye.
Bye.